I've memorized the way she laughs when she thinks no one's watching, how her voice changes when she calls her mama, and the exact shade of brown in her eyes when she's passionate about something. She thinks I'm just her boss. She has no idea I'm completely, hopelessly, dangerously in love with her. My name is Sebastian Cross, and I'm worth $2.3 billion. I own buildings that touch the sky, employ thousands of people, and have politicians on speed dial. But none of that matters when Nia Washington walks into my office every morning at exactly 8:47 a.m. with my coffee and that smile that could power Manhattan. 3 years. That's how long she's been working for me, and I can tell you the exact moment I fell. It was a Thursday morning, and some jackass investor was screaming at her over the phone about a delayed meeting. I watched her handle it with this incredible grace, switching from her professional voice to something softer when she said, "Sir, I understand your frustration, but raising your voice at me isn't going to change the calendar." After she hung up, she muttered something in what I later learned was French Creole, and I knew I was done for. Nia's from New Orleans, 7th Ward, and she carries that city in her bones. She keeps hot sauce in her purse, knows every jazz musician worth knowing. And when she talks to her grandmother on the phone, her whole voice changes. It becomes musical, full of warmth and rhythms I don't understand, but desperately want to learn. I've caught myself staying late just to hear her side of those conversations. The way she says, "Yes, ma'am," and "No, grand-mère," with such love, it makes my chest ache. I know things about her that she doesn't know I know. She takes her coffee with 2 sugars and oat milk. She keeps backup earrings in her desk drawer because she's always losing them. When she's thinking hard, she twirls her natural curls around her finger. And when she's really concentrating, she bites her lower lip. I know she went to Spelman College, that she sends money home to her family every month, and that she's been taking night classes to get her MBA because she wants to start her own consulting firm someday. The problem is, I'm not supposed to know these things. I'm her boss, and she's my assistant, and there's a line I'm not supposed to cross. But every day, I find myself pushing against that line, looking for excuses to extend our conversations, to learn more about her world. Like when I started learning basic Creole phrases after hearing her talk to her grandmother. Pathetic, right? A grown man using language apps in his penthouse apartment, practicing bonjour and comment nouillet, just in case I ever get the chance to impress her. I never do use them, though. Something tells me she'd see right through me, and I'm not ready for that conversation yet. The moment I knew I was in real trouble was 3 months ago, during a board meeting. One of the older investors, this fossil named Patterson, was questioning some numbers, and Nia was there to present the quarterly analysis. She was brilliant, as always, breaking down complex data into clear, actionable insights. When she finished, Patterson leaned back in his chair and said, "Well, you're certainly articulate. Very impressive." I watched her face. Her smile stayed perfect, professional, but her eyes went cold. She said, "Thank you, sir." But I could see the way her jaw tightened, the way her hands gripped her notes just a little harder. After the meeting, I wanted to go back and tell Patterson exactly what I thought about his backhanded compliment. But Nia was already gone, disappeared into the elevator with that same professional smile. That's when I realized I wasn't just attracted to her. I was furious for her, protective of her, and completely, utterly in love with her. And I had no idea what to do about it. So I did what any logical billionaire would do. I started manufacturing reasons to spend more time with her. Business trips became my excuse to see her outside the sterile walls of our office building. I'd find clients in different cities, important meetings that absolutely required my personal assistant's presence. The first time I suggested she come with me to New Orleans for a client meeting, she gave me this look. "Mr. Cross, we don't have any clients in New Orleans." "We will," I said, probably too quickly. "I'm thinking about expanding our southern operations." She raised an eyebrow but didn't argue. 3 days later, we were on my private jet, and I was trying not to stare at her as she worked on her laptop, completely in her element, even at 30,000 feet. New Orleans was a revelation. The moment we stepped off the plane, I watched Nia transform. Her shoulders relaxed, her smile became real, and when she started pointing out landmarks as we drove through the city, I realized I was seeing her for the first time. Not the polished professional who managed my calendar and handled difficult clients, but the woman who grew up in this city, who knew every street corner and could tell you the history of every building. That's where I used to get my hair done, she said, pointing to a small salon. And over there, that's where my grandmère taught me to make gumbo. She said you can't learn that from a recipe book. You have to feel it. I wanted to ask her everything about her childhood, her family, her dreams. But I also knew I was walking a dangerous line. She was showing me her world, and I was trying not to let her see how desperate I was to be part of it. The fake client meeting went fine. Nia was professional, efficient, everything I expected. But afterwards, she asked if I wanted to get dinner, and something in her voice made me think she wasn't just being polite. There's this place, she said. It's not fancy, but the food is incredible. My family owns it. 20 minutes later, I'm sitting in a small restaurant in the 7th Ward, surrounded by the most incredible smells and feeling completely out of place in my $1,000 suit. Nia's uncle Claude was behind the bar, her cousin Tomas was waiting tables, and her grandmother, this tiny woman with silver hair and eyes that seemed to see everything, was holding court at a corner table. "Grandmère," Nia said, switching to that musical voice, "this is my boss, Sebastian Cross." Her grandmother looked me up and down, and I felt like I was being evaluated by someone who'd seen everything and wasn't impressed by much. "Sit," she said finally. "You're too skinny. Nia, get this man some real food." For the next 2 hours, I ate the best meal of my life, while Nia's family told stories, argued about baseball, and occasionally threw questions my way that felt more like gentle interrogations. They were protective of her. That was clear. And they were trying to figure out what a white billionaire was doing in their restaurant with their Nia. I watched her with them, saw how she laughed at her uncle's jokes, how she helped her cousin with his homework, how she listened to her grandmother's stories about the old days. This was her world, rich and warm and full of love, and I was just a visitor. On the plane ride back, she was quiet. I thought maybe I'd overstepped, seen too much, but then she said, "Thank you for dinner. My family liked you." "How could you tell?" She smiled. "Grandmère asked if you were coming back. She only does that if she approves." I wanted to tell her that I'd come back every weekend if she'd let me, that I'd learn to make gumbo and play dominoes and fit into her world however she'd have me. Instead, I just said, "I'd like that." But things got complicated fast. Within a week of our return, I started hearing whispers, office gossip, speculation about why the boss was suddenly taking his assistant on business trips. I tried to shut it down, but corporate environments are like small towns. People talk, and rumors spread faster than wildfire. The worst part was watching how it affected Nia. She started being more formal with me, more distant. She'd knock on my door before entering, even though she'd been walking into my office freely for 3 years. She stopped staying late to chat about her weekend plans or her grandmother's health. Then HR called her in for a meeting. I found out about it from Janet in accounting, who mentioned it like it was casual office gossip. "Did you hear they're talking to your assistant about workplace relationships? Apparently someone complained about inappropriate behavior." My blood went cold. While I was protected by my position, my wealth, my privilege, Nia was vulnerable. She could lose her job, her reputation, her future, all because I couldn't keep my feelings in check. That afternoon, she walked into my office with her resignation letter. "We need to talk," she said, and her voice was different, colder, professional in a way that felt like armor. "Nia, if this is about the HR meeting, it's about the fact that people think I'm sleeping with you to get ahead." She placed the letter on my desk. "It's about the fact that I can't do my job without people questioning my qualifications. It's about the fact that I've worked my ass off for 3 years to build a reputation, and now all anyone can talk about is whether I'm the boss's black girlfriend." The words hit me like a physical blow. I never meant for that to happen. Intent doesn't matter when the result is the same. She stood there looking at me with those beautiful eyes that were now filled with disappointment. "I'm good at my job, Sebastian. I've doubled your efficiency, saved you millions in bad investments, and handled crises that would have destroyed other executives. But now, none of that matters because people think I'm here for other reasons." "Don't resign," I said, and I heard the desperation in my own voice. "I'll fix this. I'll make them understand." "Understand what?" She crossed her arms. "That you're in love with me?" The question hung in the air between us like a live wire. I could lie, deny it, pretend this was all a misunderstanding. But looking at her, seeing the hurt and anger in her face, I couldn't do it. Yes, I said quietly, I'm in love with you. Her laugh was bitter. You think you can just decide to love me? You think because you have money and power, you can just claim me like another acquisition? It's not like that, isn't it? She leaned forward. You learn a few words in Creole. You eat dinner with my family. You think you understand my world. But you don't see the part where I code switch every morning when I walk into this building. You don't see the part where I have to work twice as hard to get half the recognition. You don't see the part where your feelings for me put my entire career at risk. I wanted to argue, to defend myself, but she was right. I'd been so focused on my own feelings that I hadn't considered the cost to her. I'd been selfish, privileged, and blind to the realities of her experience. I'm sorry, I said, and it felt completely inadequate. I know you are. She picked up her purse. But sorry doesn't undo the damage. I'll finish out the week, help you find a replacement. After she left, I sat in my office staring at her resignation letter until the words blurred together. I'd built an empire, conquered markets, negotiated deals worth billions. But I'd lost the one thing that mattered most, and I had no idea how to get it back. That night I did something I'd never done before. I started researching, not stock prices or market trends, but the history I should have learned years ago. I read about the civil rights movement, about segregation, about the ongoing struggles of Black women in corporate America. I read about microaggressions, about the toll of being the only Black person in a room, about the exhaustion of constantly proving your worth. I learned about the history of Black women being sexualized and stereotyped, about the specific challenges of interracial relationships, about the ways that power imbalances can turn love into something harmful. Every article, every study, every personal account was like a mirror, showing me my own ignorance. But I also learned about resilience, about strength, about the beauty and complexity of Black culture. I learned about the importance of respect, of understanding, of taking the time to really see someone instead of just claiming to love them. 2 weeks later, I was standing on the front porch of a shotgun house in the 7th Ward, holding a container of gumbo that had taken me 3 days to perfect, and feeling more nervous than I'd ever been in my life. Nia's grandmother answered the door, took one look at me and said, "You look terrible." "I feel terrible," I admitted. She studied me for a long moment, then stepped aside. "Come in. Nia's not here, but we should talk." Her living room was small but warm, filled with family photos and the smell of coffee and something sweet baking in the oven. She gestured for me to sit on a worn couch that was probably older than I was. "You brought gumbo," she said, taking the container from me. "I learned your recipe. Well, I tried to. It probably doesn't taste anything like yours." She opened the container, sniffed it, and raised an eyebrow. "It's not terrible, but it's not gumbo either." Despite everything, I almost smiled. I figured, "Why are you here, Sebastian?" The question was simple, but I knew my answer would determine everything. "Because I love your granddaughter, and I think I've been loving her wrong." She sat down across from me, hands folded in her lap. "Tell me what you learned." For the next hour, I told her everything. About my research, my realizations, my understanding of how my privilege had blinded me to Nia's reality. I told her about the workplace gossip, the HR meeting, the way I'd put Nia's career at risk without even realizing it. "You want to know what love looks like to a Black woman?" she said when I finished. "It's not flowers and fancy dinners. It's protection. It's understanding that when she walks into that office, she's carrying the weight of every stereotype, every assumption, every person who came before her. It's knowing that your feelings for her can't be separate from the world she lives in." "I know that now," I said, "but I don't know how to fix it." "You don't fix it," she said firmly. "You do better. You use that power and privilege to protect her, to lift her up, to make sure she never has to choose between love and her dignity again." When I left her house, I had a plan. It wasn't perfect, and it wasn't guaranteed to work, but it was honest, and maybe if I was lucky, it would be enough. The next morning, I called an emergency board meeting. I stood in front of the same room where Patterson had made his backhanded compliment and told them exactly what I thought about their workplace culture. I announced new policies about harassment, new diversity initiatives, new accountability measures. I made it clear that anyone who had a problem with these changes could find another job. Then I called Nia. "I'm not coming back," she said before I could speak. "I'm not asking you to," I replied. "I'm asking you to let me come to you." An hour later, I was standing outside her apartment building, holding a folder full of business proposals and trying not to look as desperate as I felt. She opened the door wearing jeans and a Spellman t-shirt, her hair in a messy bun, and she was more beautiful than I'd ever seen her. "What's this?" she asked, looking at the folder. "A partnership proposal for your consulting firm." She stared at me. "What consulting firm?" "The one you're going to start, the one you've been dreaming about for years." I handed her the folder. "I want to be your first investor, not as your boss, not as someone who thinks he can buy your affection, but as someone who believes in your vision and wants to help make it happen." She opened the folder, scanned the documents, and I watched her expression change from suspicion to surprise to something that might have been hope. "This is a real offer," she said, "with real terms, real equity, real respect for your expertise." I took a deep breath. "I spent the last 2 weeks learning what I should have known before I fell in love with you. I learned that love isn't about possession or control. It's about partnership, about lifting each other up, about facing the world together." She looked up at me, and I saw tears in her eyes. "This doesn't fix everything, Sebastian." "I know, but it's a start." She was quiet for a long moment, and I felt my heart hammering against my ribs. Then she said, "My grandmother likes you. She told me I make terrible gumbo. She tells everyone that, but she also said you listened, really listened, and that matters." She stepped back, opening the door wider. "Come in. Let's talk about this partnership." As I followed her into her apartment, I realized that this was the beginning of something different. Not the fairy tale I'd imagined, but something real and challenging and worth fighting for. 6 months later, we're partners in business and in life. Nia's consulting firm is thriving, her expertise finally getting the recognition it deserves. We still face challenges, stares when we're out together, questions about our relationship, the ongoing work of navigating our different worlds. But we face them together with honesty and respect in the kind of love that grows stronger through difficulty. I'm still a billionaire. She's still the smartest person I know. But now I understand that love isn't about what I can give her or what she can do for me. It's about building something together, something that honors both of our truths and makes us both better. And when she calls her grandmother now, switching to that musical voice full of warmth and love, sometimes she hands me the phone. "Grandmère wants to know if you're coming to Sunday dinner," she'll say, and I'll say yes, even though I know I'll be the worst dominoes player at the table, and my gumbo will never be quite right. Because that's what love looks like when you do it right. It's not about perfection or erasing differences. It's about showing up, doing the work, and choosing each other every single day. And Nia Washington, with all her strength and beauty and complexity, chose me back. Not because of my money or my power, but because I finally learned how to love her the way she deserved to be loved. That's worth more than any fortune I could ever build.